I'm Dot.
And I'm Dan.
And we're London Grammar, and you're watching Noise 11.
And we welcome into noise11.com from London Grammar. Dot and Dan, welcome to Australia.
Hey,
First time down here. Been a few shows under the belt so far, and some pretty good reviews coming out of it to date. So you've got the thumbs up from a few Australian reviewers so far.
That's good.
Yeah. You're getting down to Australia, I guess, you've got the debut album, If You Wait, that has been a remarkable success for you. It was a number 2 record in Australia. It also reached number 2 in the UK. Did that take you by surprise?
Well, I think definitely. I mean, considering it kind of came out, we put our first song up in December of 2012, so the whole of 2013 was a massive surprise. But I mean, in the UK it felt like a more steady build-up because we had been, it took a little bit longer to catch on than it did even in Australia, which was crazy in itself because of the way sort of Triple J picked it up. And but by the time the album came around, we'd done so much more work and promo building up to it that it was less of a surprise, say, in the UK as it was here, because I mean, we'd never been out here, so it's hard to measure just what was going on here until we've come over here now and we played the festivals and we ended up playing in front of the biggest audiences we've ever played to.
Is that right?
So
wow.
Yeah, it blew us away.
Well, I guess Metal and Dust, the EP, actually got a bit of traction in Australia. So, as a band, London Grammar, pretty much all the way through 2013, got quite a bit of airplay.
Yeah, no, it was almost sort of, it was in fact the first place that it kind of was breaking through. Whereas in the UK, I mean, obviously, like, Radio 1 had started playing Hey Now, and we kind of were building some traction, but it seemed to be more, like, I don't know, it seemed to break through more quickly here. I mean, as we've said numerous times, that we're getting a lot of messages from Australians, asking us when we're coming. This is back in sort of February, March of last year. And, this was like the very beginning of it for us because, it's only been a year since we put Hey Now online, and it's kind of so, yeah. It was kind of exciting coming out here because we didn't really know what to expect, but obviously had high expectations. So, but I think it's more than met those expectations.
So coming to the other side of the world, performing the set for the first time, you would have obviously known the reaction or noticed the reaction from the audience for different songs. Is it the same reaction for the same songs that you were getting in the UK?
It's not completely dissimilar here.
Yeah, I think we knew Hey Now was going to be a big song here because that was the one that first started getting played a time ago, and it kind of it seemed to stick around on the radio definitely a lot longer than it did in the UK. And then, but Strong, I mean, there's just been
a bit of a
big
surprise
track here, and I think the kind of the bigger UK singles like Strong and Wasting My Young Years, we didn't know what kind of traction they'd had here, so that's been an amazing surprise.
I think the Strong thing has been a more recent thing. Suddenly it's been getting a lot more commercial plays, and I know it's in this Home and Away advert, and a lot of people talking about that, but I think we were talking about it literally on the way here about how it's almost, that song's beginning to take on a life of its own, where it kind of had this success in the UK and now is suddenly branching out into other countries, and it's just amazing when people start singing it back to us. It's a pretty special thing. I
like the way, Dan, when you said Home and Away advert, you had a big grin on your face when you said it, like, you're in a Home and Away ad. That's like a trophy for a British act, isn't it?
Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Yeah. Is it very? I don't know. I mean, to me, I suppose it's so synonymous with this country.
Were you fans of the show or
no?
Or no?
I don't watch.
I mean, it's funny because it's like the Australian soaps in the UK, I mean, I suppose we were just inundated with their own soaps, but when we went to Ireland, they're just absolutely massive over there.
Yeah, it's
Home and
really
Away
funny.
and Neighbours are like their biggest soaps, so it's just
true.
really funny.
Right, well, you'll have to go on the Neighbours tour while you're in Australia. That'll be something interesting. If we go back to the origins of the band, Dan, it was you and Hannah to start with.
Yeah.
How long after that, Dot, did you come into the story?
About a year. I mean, I was a year below these guys at uni, so that's how that happened. And I mean, maybe a couple of years because I actually didn't really start playing until a year after I'd been there. But kind of around that time, they'd started, Hannah and Dan started to play kind of more a couple of their own songs, and then that kind of really developed as well more when I joined, and we were travelling down to London a lot, just playing gigs from Nottingham where we were, and about a few months after that it started to get more serious.
Hmm. And what about the songs themselves, Dan? As soon as you met Hannah, were you writing immediately?
Yeah, we kind of started writing. Well, not immediately. I think it was more a case at first was just sort of playing some songs and, playing a few sort of open mic nights to get Hannah, you know, Hannah really used to playing live and stuff, and she kind of was immediately. Obviously, she's brilliant. Was brilliant immediately, and then we kind of started writing our own music, and then when Dot joined, that began even more so. We were writing, and yeah, and it just kind of was a natural thing. It just happened as it does with most bands, I suppose.
What are the individual tastes, music tastes like within the three of you? Are they very, very similar, or do you have quite diverse, different tastes individually?
They're very different, really. Yeah, very, very different, I think, which is always an interesting thing about... I mean, there are certain things we obviously align with, and we obviously, Hannah and Dot listen to a lot of film soundtracks, which, obviously I also like, and we have certain bands like Radiohead or Alt J, and that we do all like as well. Yeah. But then...
I kind of imagined it as like, the primary colours graph, where you've got the three circles, and then... Yeah. In between each circle, you've got all our individual tastes. In between each circle, you've got like a kind of reasonably big area where two of us agree, and then the smallest areas in the middle where all three agree.
Yeah,
that's it. I'd say that's quite a good analogy for it.
Yeah. So name one band, Dot, that is like just in your area of the circle and no one else's.
I don't know, like Ocean Size.
Yeah, they're definitely on your own.
Actually, no, Hannah kind of likes Ocean Size, the softer stuff. And I don't know, Mode Selector.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have Chopin, like classical piano stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really big into that because I played classical piano, so I've always listened to a lot of that side of classical music.
Mm. Does it feel like a quick journey from, just meeting up and forming London Grammar to, suddenly millions of views on YouTube? Or does it feel to you guys like you've...
Yes and no, I guess.
Been a long slog.
It's kind of weird because, I mean, obviously, it's one of those things. It's sort of like we've been together now for sort of 4 or 5 years now, I guess. So certainly since me and Hannah first met, and then even 3.5 years since we met Dot. So it has been a while in terms of like it's been our lives now for a long time. But obviously a big part of that was spent writing and recording the album, almost 18 months. So that was almost a longer period than it has been since we've actually existed in the world, and that in terms of how quickly it's happened since we first released our music, that's been very quick. Even the best example being it's only been 3.5 months since we released our record, so it has been quite quick, and I think we almost feel like we're still at the very beginning of it, even though it's been a while. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think the band kind of existed as two lives, really. We had like the kind of pre-signing and meeting each other and playing some gigs around, and which I was part of some of that, not all of that, and then kind of post-signing we just made the album, then released it. And I think definitely since having made the album, it has been really quick, because I mean, obviously from putting a first song up on 9, it is crazy that we're now just travelling around the world 12 months later.
Well, a song like Wasting My Young Years is like millions into the YouTube views now. And obviously the most well-known of the songs for London Grammar. Does it feel like a favourite for you guys? Are your favourite songs the same favourite songs that the audience has?
I mean, I to be honest, I'd actually say I think Strong's even more well-known now, to be honest. It almost seems to have eclipse that in a way.
Yeah, I think like it's different in different countries as well. Like in France, they just love Wasting. Yeah, it's funny.
It is funny. It does seem to change. It does vary per country, but I mean, it's just the whole thing is kind of weird.
Is there a popularity that comes with having a hit record now in terms of? Like there used to be a fame factor that you'd have a hit record in the UK, you'd walk down the street, people would recognise you. Does that happen now?
I mean, it's different. It's just. I always say about the world, like the music industry is definitely split between kind of the music, the pop. There's one side of pop music which is more about fame than the music. And then most musicians, I mean, all of my favourite bands, I mean, some of my favourite bands I wouldn't even know what some of them look like,
absolutely.
let alone the average person on the street, and these are big bands, you know.
Right, does that mean England is changing then? You know, the once famous tabloid
I just think
England?
It's just I mean, it's still that it still does exist, and obviously when you reach a certain level, you do become, I suppose, like, you know, people like Adele, for example, who is really like not a pop star in the in like the more commercial sense of the word, but has, because she sold so many records, has gone into that tabloid world and is obviously a very recognisable figure.
Yeah.
But then, you know, having said that, like Dot said, there are bands, you know, bands like the XX or Alt J who have sold lots of records and are very well known around the world, but really, okay, we might recognise who they are, but my girlfriend who listens to them, you wouldn't have a clue, you know. So exactly, so it is split. I mean, and I think we did a TV show recently in the UK, and we were performing opposite, I won't say who the band is, but a group that was on X Factor, and just watching them and seeing what they do and how it all works, was, you could just sense like how different the worlds are that we come from, even though we're both in the music industry and that's what we do for a living. And that's not to demean what they do, because obviously it is an art form in its own sense, you know. Well, an art form. It's a business in its own sense, but it's very, very different.
That unnamed band that you won't mention, did they have a 1 in their title?
They actually didn't.
They actually didn't have a 1 in their title. No,
they're definitely from a similar world.
Yeah, similar worlds.
Yeah. You did the collaboration with Disclosure, Help Me Lose My Mind. Tell me about that song and how that collaboration came about.
I mean, we were kind of friends with their managers a bit before, because around the time we were looking for management, they were also in a similar position, and so we kind of kept in touch over a period of a year or two, and we were writing, and then their managers, Method Management, they showed our music to the guys, Guy and Howard, and they just listened to one of our old demos that Hannah had written and just fell in love with her voice. And just, you know, being dance producers, they've always said they really wanted to make a vocal album, so they were just blown away by it and wanted to get her in, and then spent a couple of days in the studio with them, and it came about really quickly. I mean, they really write in a different way really quickly. I mean, they'd actually put together the demo for that track in the hour or so before we got to the studio. So it's just crazy, and yeah, they loved it.
Is that the only collaboration you've done, or have you got some more in the works?
It is the only collaboration, really. It's kind of, and then to be honest, it's very much Hannah's collaboration in a sense, because it's sort of, you know, her top line and stuff, but you know, the Disclosure's music, so that's the only one at the moment.
And I guess with London Grammar, a lot of the lyrics are Hannah's too, about Hannah's personal life.
They all are.
That must be a strange feeling for you guys when you're actually performing songs about somebody who was on stage singing stories about herself.
I suppose that's just, I mean, that's a normal thing in a band, isn't it? Because there's a lot less bands now than there used to be. I mean, there's been a lot been said about that in terms of you know, the sound bowls and stuff coming out, but that's happened. That used to happen all the time, and it's an amazing feeling. We love to be able to kind of contribute in a way to those stories about her life that because they're so personal to her. So it's amazing that, you know, she even feels that our contributions fit in with that, because that I suppose that is strange. You're singing over something, you know. Sometimes she writes whole songs and we kind of arrange them, and then other times we're writing music. There are a lot of songs where sort of Dan and I have written a piece of music that she's singing over. So I suppose that is strange that she's singing about her own life over music. But
I think it's just I think that's very, you know, fortunately, I think Dot's right, and unfortunately we've managed to sort of connect together as the three people, and that kind of, that's all sort of, all those barriers have gone down, and we just it's true, like you sort of thing, that's a process you learn over a period of writing, where you meld together so much that anything that any of us write now is so influenced by each other that it becomes London Grammar. So if like Dan writes a guitar piece now, or I write a piano piece, then it's kind of, I know that it's something that Hannah would feel as well, or in a similar way. So you kind of,
you just learn. I mean, we know everything about each other, so you just kind of write as one, I guess.
Unfortunately, really, yes.
Yeah. We've mentioned Strong. We haven't talked about Strong. That was a huge hit for you in the UK as well. Tell me about that song. Is there a story?
It's kind of just that was one of the songs that sort of came about, you know, sitting in my garage and writing, which we spent a lot of our time there in my garage and at home in London, and we just sort of, you know, it was a jam that we started. Me and Dot started playing some music, and Hannah wrote this incredible melody and lyric to the song. And it's a funny one because that song was from very early on pointed out to be a potential hit record by like our record company and our managers, and everyone was like, oh, it's a hit or whatever. And we went through all of the sort of cliched things that bands go through when that happens, where everyone's trying to encourage you to, you know, change the way it sounds or change the way it's structured because they believe that it's a hit record, and we kind of became almost disillusioned with the song because of what was happening with it. It got to the point where, you know, it sort of took Dot to really sort of work on the production side of it and the aesthetic of it to actually make us fall in love with the song again. And fortunately he managed to do that. So we ended up feeling okay about it again, and then it got released, and then it did well because we kind of did have this love for it again. But it was kind of a weird song, actually. Went through a lot of different versions of that song.
We could make a whole album of just versions of Strong.
Wow.
Which I'm sure would be very boring.
Yeah, it'd be a terrible album.
What about Night Calls? Because that's also another one of the singles.
That's kind of it's a strange one. I've wanted to bring this up in an interview, but I think there's been like a bit of a thing about the fact that it's almost said that we haven't really given enough credit to Kavinsky about it, and I know he kind of wrote something online about saying that.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
What did he write?
Something that we hadn't really credited him enough on it, or something like that. Or that I think what happens is it became a single and it's been played on the radio, and the DJs haven't been saying necessarily that it is by Kavinsky, and you know, understandably he might feel a little bit upset about that, but
we should really write to him.
We should really, because I think, you know, we genuinely love
I didn't know that.
his song, you know, and it is an incredible song, and we you know, we feel very honoured that we've been able to cover it in our own way, and it's, you know, and kind of take it to other people, but. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of that's a weird thing that's happened. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
Oh no, I think you've given him a
Hopefully,
pat on the back.
Maybe he'll see it. I don't know. Maybe he won't. But yeah, you know, we genuinely do love the song. I'm sorry that if he feels that way.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you all love it. I'm sure he loves the little payment that he gets every now and then from the fact that you've recorded the song as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you guys in here, Dan and Dot, London Grammar, here at noise11.com.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.